Protecting voting rights at all costs. Ida B. Wells would be disappointed in the state of democracy in the United States right now. Voting rights are in jeopardy of completely being taken away, especially for marginalized groups. Congress should work to expand voting rights. Marginalized people are at risk of having their rights encroached upon if voting rights are not expanded. According to Arthurs King and Smith, conservatives consistently sought to weaken the law at earlier stages in the legislative renewal process. Conservatives traditionally vote against the interest of marginalized groups. Lawmakers are continuing to propose changes to voting rights policies that, that directly impact African Americans and the emerging Latino electorate, ranging from issues like voter identification laws, accusations of voter fraud, and voting rights for convicted felons. The great bulk of Republicans who now identify as conservatives have had strong reasons to discourage rather than encourage voting by these groups, thereby maintaining a disproportionate predominance of whites in America's active electorate. History shows that the white electorate does not vote or pass policies and laws that benefit African Americans, women, or non whites. Shelby County versus Holder is allowing minorities and marginalized voters to be discriminated against. Shelby County versus Holder was a ruling that stated Section 4 and 5 of the Voting Rights Act is unconstitutional, but these sections actually have protected marginalized voters. Texas, one of the most conservative and white majority states, tried its hand at voter suppression. Just before Shelby County versus Holder, Texas tried to disenfranchise thousands of voters. According to book Voter Suppression in U.S. Elections, in 2012, Section 5 was used to block Texans from implementing the most restrictive voter law in the county, which threatened the rights of more than 600,000 registered voters, predominantly Latinos and African Americans. This was just a preview of what was to come. Texas also has an immigration crisis, and if Latino voters are disenfranchised, they cannot vote in elections that might directly affect them or their family. American democracy is at risk if the Voting Rights Act is not expanded. Enacted by Congress initially to be a temporary measure, the VRA soon proved the most successful act of the Civil Rights era. Measured in policy and political terms, it has enfranchised millions of largely non-white voters and promoted office holding by hundreds of non-white candidates, vindicating America's claim to be a democracy in the eyes of America. When we can see when democracy is challenged, what happens after the Capitol insurrection of 2021. If we do not have strong voting protections, more instances like June 6 might become more common. The Voting Rights Act protects rights for all people, white and non-white alike. It shows America that its government is willing to protect citizens' right to vote without worrying about policies discriminating against them. In conclusion, so many activists have sacrificed so much to ensure that every single American have their constitutional rights protected. Over the past 10 years, the Supreme Court and Republican Party have sought to scale back the Voting Rights Act of 1965. If there is any hope of truly democratic society, our Congress must expand the Voting Rights Act of 1965.